Hello, welcome to Temple Baptist Church in Poplar, Bluff, Missouri. It's good to be with you for a devotional today. We're going to be in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58. I want to read, I know I don't normally do this, but I want to start with verse 3, and I want to read through verse 12. I think it'll give you a real setting for the verse that I want to use as our text. Verse 10 is the one we will be using for our text, but I think we need all of these to kind of bring it together. And so, why have you fasted, they say, and you have not seen? Why have you afflicted our soul, and you take no notice? In fact, in the days of your fast, you find pleasure and explode all your labors, indeed as fast for strife and debate, and not to strike with the fist of the wickedness. You will not fast as you do this day, to make your voice heard on high. It is a fast that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his soul. It is to bow down his head like a bulrush, and to spread out sackcloth and ashes. Would you call this a fast and an acceptable day to the Lord? Is this not the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bounds of the wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that you break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out, when you see the naked, and that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh? Then your light shall break forth like the morning, your healing shall spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry, and he will say, Here am I. If you take away the yoke from the midst, the pointing of the finger and the speaking of wickedness, if you exalt your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness shall be as the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually, and satisfy your soul in drought, and strengthen your bones, and you shall be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water, whose water does not fall. Those from among you shall build the old waste place. You shall rise up in the foundation of many generations, and you shall be called to repair the breaches, the restorer of streets to dwell in. Let's think about worship a little bit. Do you find yourself, when you're in worship service, do you find yourself thinking about maybe 1,000 different things while church is going on during worship service, or maybe even during your daily quiet time? You get alone, and maybe you're singing a song, you're hearing the sermon, you're reading the Bible, but your mind and heart aren't fully engaged. You're not really in it. You're not really with it, in other words. And I think, Isaiah's divided, and I think the final division here is in chapter 8, and he's begins this last part of his prophecy in chapter 58 by denouncing the formalistic religious of the people. How they done it. Israel had gone through the outward motions of worship. I wonder how many times we do that. How many times do we go through the outward motions of worship, but their hearts were just far from the Lord as their pagan enemies? They weren't any closer to God than their enemies were. They were just going through, just doing it. And God then informs Israel in verse 10 that he expected worship that bloomed into godly ministry. What do you say in verse 10? If you extend your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness shall be as the noonday. So he's doing that. He expects worship that blossomed in a godly ministry. Among today's truth, that true worship will, excite us to minister to the physical and spiritual needs of people around us. Worship is more than just coming and sitting in a church service, listening to some songs, listening to the preacher, and saying a prayer and going home. Worship is far more than that. Just minister to the physical needs. There are plenty of distractions. Trust me, there are plenty of distractions that keep us from authentic worship, real worship, true worship. But we have to be prepared, our hearts and our minds, to keep our eyes on Jesus. You know, that's where it's at. We keep our eyes on Jesus. Go forth from worship, go forth from the service in to minister in His name. You know, we can go through the motions. You can go to church every time the door's open. Now, I'm not sure that's true worship. You know, true worship is when we realize that God is God and we need to share Him with a lost and dying world. Come and be a part of our services here at Temple. We meet on Sunday mornings at 8 o'clock. Our first worship service is at 8. Then we have our Sunday school classes at 9. Our second worship service is at 10 o'clock. Then we meet Sunday nights at 6 and Wednesday nights at 7. May God bless you is our prayer.